Amazing act of courage. Black Panther member exposes ICE agents' intent to detain inspiring woman. Cassie Johnson could feel the oppressive weight of the whispers surrounding her. Colleagues huddled in corners of the clinic, furtively speaking in hushed tones. The words ICE agents cut through Cassie's already frayed nerves like a knife. The diligent nurse and devoted single mother had always put others first, yet now she found herself suffocating beneath the grim realization that the very safety of her family was threatened. Just an ordinary afternoon shift had suddenly transformed into a landscape riddled with uncertainty. Her heart raced for her two young daughters, whose laughter filled their small apartment, blissfully unaware of the dark storm looming just outside their door. As Cassie readjusted the stethoscope around her neck, an uneasy feeling curled in her stomach. She thought about her grandmother's wisdom. Never turn your back on those you love. But what if standing up meant potentially putting her daughters in harm's way? Could she protect them while fighting against a system that sought to exploit their struggles? What if the whispers were directing the agents right to her? Dr. Ellis, a respected physician with thinning hair, caught her distracted gaze. "Cassie, did you hear about the woman down the street? Detained at her own job, the ICE agents. They're relentless." They had known this woman. She had come into the clinic for her kids' vaccinations. And now she was gone. Cassie's breath hitched. She glanced at her phone, heart sinking as she realized it was almost time to pick up her girls from school. Every minute counted, and she couldn't let fear overpower her resolve. She needed to act. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day dragged on, each hour stretching longer than the last, and as Cassie finished her shift, dread washed over her like a cold shower. She was confused. How could a clerical error label her an unlawful resident? It defied belief. The vulnerability was staggering. She felt like a target, marked but without any armor to shield her. The thought of being taken away, of her daughters being left alone, tightened a noose around her heart. Outside the clinic, shadows danced in the fading light. Malik approached her, an unexpected ally cloaked in determination. "I heard about your situation. We can fight this, together." His conviction was magnetic, igniting something deep within her. But as his words resonated in the air, Cassie's mind raced with panic. Would this fight jeopardize everything she loved? The walls felt like they were closing in. Memories of her grandmother's brave heart played in her mind, yet doubt gnawed at her spirit. Would exposing the truth only lead to more pain? As the door shut behind her, Cassie's pulse quickened. The choice hung over her like a dark cloud. Should she step into a world fraught with danger for the hope of defending her family? Anxiety swelled, and then it struck her. She might be standing on the edge of change or disaster. The ground beneath her felt unreliable, but as she stared across the chaotic neighborhood, she realized she needed to know where the path would lead. Would she wield courage or succumb to fear? The answer teetered on the brink, and the storm on the horizon seemed to echo the tumult in her heart. Cassie stood frozen at the entrance of the clinic, the sounds of the bustling street fading to a dull roar. The urgency of Malik's words echoed in her mind like a heartbeat, the promise of collaboration, of speaking out against injustice. She had always thought of herself as a caregiver, a protector, but now she faced an unexpected crossroads. Decisions loomed ahead, cloaked in the weight of consequences. What if she stepped up? What if in this moment of vulnerability, she became the voice for others like her? Fear clawed at the edges of her courage. Would her efforts make a difference, or would they only expose her family to greater danger? As she crossed the threshold into the twilight, a sudden resolve surged in her. She needed to be proactive, to reclaim her narrative from powers that sought to label her a mere statistic. After dropping her girls at home, Cassie took a deep breath. the scent of their familiar surroundings a balm to her frantic thoughts. She carefully presented the situation to her daughters as a teaching moment, emphasizing the importance of bravery over fear, the sheer impact of kindness in the face of adversity. Little did they know the lesson was just as much for her as it was for them. That night, the fear returned in waves. Sleep evaded her as she tossed and turned, the specter of ICE agents filling her mind with dreadful visions of separation and chaos. But a spark of something emerged within her. Clarity, perhaps. She could channel this fear into action. Armed with her nursing knowledge and the passionate spirit of her community, she began to formulate a plan. The following day, Cassie reached out to Malik, her determination glossed in every word. They met at a local cafe, the aroma of coffee thick in the air. "We can organize information sessions, maybe create a safe space for people to learn their rights," she suggested, her voice steady but laced with nervous excitement. Malik leaned in, eyes shining with possibility. "We can do more than that, Cassie. We can also connect with local lawyers, advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. You have the heart and the experience to help." Cassie felt that old flicker of fear sizzle into fire. Ideas began to flow. She envisioned workshops, filled chairs, people exchanging stories that could empower rather than intimidate. Could she, a single mother who juggled patience and parenting, truly spearhead an initiative? The prospect both terrified and thrilled her. "Together we can build a coalition," Malik encouraged. "People will listen. We need to shine a light on these issues. You're not just a nurse. You're a leader." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Cassie reached out to community organizations, each call unfolding like petals of a blooming flower. She discovered hidden capabilities within herself. The passion resonated in her voice, an unexpected power in her conviction. It wasn't just about her own safety anymore. It was about amplifying the echoes of every frightened parent, every quiet struggle. Yet even as she made strides, the threat loomed over her like a dark shadow. Each conversation with legal representatives revealed layers of complexity within immigration laws, heightening her anxiety. Would this whirlwind of courage put her family at risk? The possibility of repercussions left her awake at night, biting her nails in uncertainty. As she navigated the complicated tapestry of community needs and personal stakes, Cassie's understanding of her own strength evolved. She was becoming more than just Cassie the nurse. She was becoming a beacon of hope for those around her. The calls for support rolled in, the sheer magnitude of the issue swallowing her whole. But there was still so much to figure out, and time was running out. The threat was real, and she could feel it creeping closer. With the community's response growing more vocal, she took a deep breath, rallying her courage as she prepared for the next meeting. The moment they scheduled the first community forum, a palpable excitement filled the air. However, a sneaking suspicion began to gnaw at her mind. What if this act of bravery stirred the ire of those who watched closely? A new layer of the game had just begun, and Cassie stood at the precipice of confrontation. What secrets would she uncover in her pursuit of justice? The air crackled with anticipation as she ventured forth into the unknown depths of her resolve. Would she confront her fears head-on, or would they spiral out of control? The next chapter of her journey awaited, filled with choices that could change everything. Cassie's heart raced as she stood in front of the community center, her hands trembling at her sides. It was an uncharacteristic response for a nurse who had faced life-and-death situations on countless occasions. Yet today was different. Today she was stepping into a role far more perilous than she had ever imagined. As she entered the room filled with eager faces, the gravity of her commitment settled like a lead weight on her chest. She had gathered a diverse group, families seeking asylum, local advocates, and even a few concerned citizens. They all waited in silence, glancing at her with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Cassie took a deep breath, recalling Malik's encouragement. No, this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the heartaches that linked them all. As she began to speak, words poured out unfiltered, fueled by an urgency deeper than fear. "This is a safe space where we can talk about our rights and share our stories," she told them, her voice trembling from the enormity of the moment but steadying as it gained momentum. "Each account, Each face across the room turned into a mirror reflecting her own fears, hopes, and silent battles. Despite her growing confidence, Cassie sensed the underlying tension in the room. After her introduction, she paused to take stock of the conversations. People shared harrowing tales of their experiences with ICE, detailing assaults on their dignity, sudden detentions, and the pervasive threat of being torn from their families. With each story, a knot tightened in her stomach. She realized her undertaking had more implications than simple empowerment. Suddenly, a woman raised her hand, her face lined with exhaustion and fear. But what happens if they come for us while we're here? Will this meeting really protect us? The question hung in the air, weighted with reality. Cassie met her eyes, recognizing the desperation urging her to step up. "This is why we need each other," she replied earnestly. "We need to be informed and prepared. Let's establish a network. We can create a system that notifies each other if anything happens. Empowerment is our best defense." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement, and for the first time she saw sparks of hope ignite in their eyes. Yet as the applause rang out, she felt a fresh wave of doubt. There was a fine line between advocacy and activism, and she was straddling it precariously. What lay ahead was a path riddled with consequences she could scarcely anticipate. Over the following days, Cassie threw herself into the preparation for the next forum with ferocity, her mind racing with the structural needs of the coalition they were forming. The various threads, lawyers, medical advice, emotional support, began to weave into a tapestry of resistance. She pored over pamphlets, gathering any information she could find for families under threat, and strategized outreach with Malik. But the quiet whisper of anxiety lingered. Was her input enough to shield the families from the brutal weight of the enforcement mechanisms surrounding them? Each late-night brainstorm only dialed up her internal struggle, fearing failure and its repercussions. Would those she inspired become targets because of her? Then came an unexpected message, a tip-off from someone in the community, indicating whispers of an impending raid in their area. Cassie's heart dropped. This was no longer hypothetical. This was real and dangerously close to home. The urgency surged, driving her towards a decision that would challenge everything she had built. "We need to act now," she told Malik breathlessly. "We can't let fear dictate our movement." But as she prepared to notify the families, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Could she lead them into a situation that put them further at risk? The time had come for her to confront not just the external threats, but the inner fears that had haunted her since the beginning. How she chose to navigate this moment would define not just her role in the community, but her very identity. Would she emerge as the hero she envisioned, or spiral into the chaos of her doubts? The stakes had never been higher, and the next move would set the stage for a confrontation she could no longer dodge. The echoes of apprehension screamed into her consciousness, and the moment of truth drew near. Cassie's heart beat in her throat as the weight of impending danger settled in. The tip-off wouldn't simply fade into the background, it demanded immediate action. She could feel the urgency coursing through her veins, a stark contrast to the ever-looming doubt that wanted to paralyze her. "Malik, we need to strategize carefully," she said, her voice firm despite the flickering of her nerves. "If the raid is imminent, we can't just tell everyone and spark panic. We have to ensure they understand what steps to take without putting themselves in a more vulnerable position." Malik nodded, his brow furrowed with the same tension weighing on her shoulders. "Agreed. We can't afford to leak information that could put anyone in harm's way, but we need to be ready to mobilize if necessary." As the two of them outlined a plan, Cassie's mind raced with what it meant to be a leader in this situation. Each decision held gravity. Each action could change lives. The narrative she had heard from the families echoed in her mind, and she couldn't shake the responsibility that wrapped around her like a vice. "Let's organize a meeting tonight," she proposed. "We can inform families about their rights, offer practical advice, and share contact information in case anyone feels unsafe." She hesitated, considering the implications of her words. Was she promising too much? The risks were enormous, but so were the stakes. "Cassie," Malik interjected, his voice steady, yet concerned. "We're aware of how high the stakes are, but we must recognize the risks of becoming a target ourselves. This will put a spotlight on you. Her resolve faltered momentarily. Could she truly bear the burden? The thought of becoming a focal point for those dangers sent a shiver down her spine, drowning her in uncertainty. But then she recalled those faces, the exhaustion, the fear reflected back at her like a plea. "I can't back down now," she said, the conviction rising within her like a defiant flame. "For them, I must be stronger than my fear. We owe it to them." With a plan in place, Cassie and Malik worked through the logistics, deciding on a location that was both discreet and sizable enough to accommodate the families. As night fell, anticipation tangled with anxiety. Cassie prepared herself in front of the mirror, meticulously smoothing her shirt, stealing her gaze. The community space they chose was dimly lit, a stark contrast to the weighty gathering of anxious families filing in. One by one she greeted them, a flicker of warmth blooming in her chest even as her own heart raced. Yet, as the room filled, she was struck by the climactic ensemble of fear and hope that radiated from the gathered faces. "Thank you all for coming," she started, her voice surprisingly steady against the backdrop of murmurs. "I want you to know that strength comes from knowledge. You're not alone in this." But the whispers of her own doubts began to creep in again as she spoke. What if she led these families into danger instead of safety? Each moment passed beneath an unyielding weight, a silence drowning out the chaotic thoughts threatening to overwhelm her. "Listen to the plan carefully," she instructed, detailing their rights and what to do in case of an emergency. Each piece of information felt monumental, yet she struggled against the nagging voice in her head questioning whether it was enough. Just as she wrapped up, the uneasy tension thickened. A sharp noise in the distance, voices growing increasingly louder, sent waves of panic through her. Were they coming for them? She locked eyes with Malik, and dread washed over them both, piercing through her final reassurance. The moment had arrived, a sudden and defining juncture. Would she be able to protect them, or had she unknowingly led them into the very threat they sought to evade? Cassie's breath caught in her lungs, poised between immediate action and the danger looming just beyond their reach. And in that critical instant, she realized that the time had come to face not only the uncertainty of their circumstances, but her own deepest fears. What kind of leader would she become when the real confrontation arrived? Cassie's heart froze, the noise from outside cutting through her thoughts like a jagged blade. The shifting sounds of hurried footsteps and rising voices spiraled her anxiety into a whirlwind of thoughts. Everything she had prepared for, the rights, the safety protocols, felt suddenly inadequate against a potential onslaught. The flickering lights of the gathering cast shadows across her face, accentuating the gravity of the moment. As she scanned the room, Cassie sensed the palpable panic mirrored in the eyes of the families. She had endeavored to be their anchor, yet now she felt herself teetering on the edge. What reassurance could she offer that would quell their fears? Was her plan merely words on paper devoid of any real power to protect them? "Malik," she whispered urgently, her voice barely above the restless murmurs. "What if they're really here? What if we can't keep them safe?" Malik's steady gaze met hers, grounding her swirling doubts. "We have to stay calm, Cassie. Panicking won't help. Focus on what you can control. You're their best chance for guidance." His reminder sparked a flicker of determination within her. She inhaled deeply, channeling the weight of the situation into a steely resolve. This was her moment, not just to lead, but to rise beyond her fears. Without thinking, she stepped to the center of the room, raising her hand slightly to attract attention. "Everyone," she called out, her tone firm yet soothing. "I need everyone to listen to me. I know that things are uncertain, but we have prepared for this. We will stay together, and we will act responsibly." As whispers subsided into a tense silence, she could feel herself shifting from uncertainty to command. "I want everyone to move to the back of the room. Stay quiet and don't draw attention to yourselves. We need to be ready, but we must also stay calm." Cassie's mind raced as she directed the families. She felt the weight of lives in her hands, a heavy responsibility, yet perhaps the transformative experience she'd needed all along. She was not just a voice among many. She was a leader in their moment of crisis, Once everyone was settled, she fought to keep the sensation of dread at bay. Each thud of her heart echoed the risk of exposure, of drawing the very threat they feared closer with every breath. With careful resolve, she began to survey the room, measuring the fear in each face, absorbing the silent communication of shared distress. They believed in her, and that transformed her doubt into a collective determination. "Remember what we discussed," she repeated, her voice firm but low. "If the situation arises where we need to leave, follow Malik. He knows the safest routes." Malik moved closer, standing at her side, his presence a steady hand against the storm brewing around them. Her eyes flitted to him, noticing the barely contained tension behind his otherwise composed demeanor. "Let's get ready. If they come, we must be prepared to act immediately." "Cassie," Malik said quietly as the noise outside intensified, "you have to trust your instincts. This is a test, not just for you, but for all of us." His words resonated, solidifying her resolve. But what if this test led to danger she could not foresee? Cassie wrestled with an unsettling feeling deep in her gut, a realization that leadership was not just about knowledge or planning. It was fundamentally about embracing uncertainty. The shadows stretched ominously within the room as time dragged on, moments feeling like hours. As she prepared to address the families once more, a loud crash echoed near the entrance, jolting everyone alive in startled fear. Would they breach the door? The jarring sound punctuated her anxiety. A question gripped her as she faced the unbearable possibility of failing to protect the very people who had put their trust in her. In that critical moment, Cassie realized that each choice she made didn't just define her leadership, but also her identity. The stakes had raised, and she was ready to confront them, ready to discover what potential lay dormant within her. But was it enough for what lay ahead? The air suddenly thickened with a tangible tension, urging her to confront the inevitable. She steeled herself, anticipating the door that might swing open at any moment, unleashing everything she feared. Cassie felt her breath quicken as she faced the uncertainty before her, that nagging doubt lurking at the edges of her resolve. The world outside had suddenly transformed into a cacophony of chaos, each noise magnifying the stakes. She focused on the faces around her, the families who had placed their faith and safety in her hands. Their wide eyes reflected fear, hope, and a desperate need for guidance. Resisting the urge to appear fragile, Cassie reminded herself of the complex layers of leadership. It was not the bliss of having all the right answers, but embracing the uncertainty and leading with confidence, despite the fear that loomed behind every thought. "Listen." Her voice carried through the room, though it trembled slightly. "Right now our priority is safety. We need to be like a tight-knit web, not a frail strand. Malik and I will handle the situation, but I need everyone to trust us." The pressure hung heavy, as if the walls were closing in. She needed to gauge the limits of their belief in her. Could they withstand the adversity that pressed upon them? A mix of determination and anxious anticipation surged within her. Something bigger than herself pulsated through the air. It was resilience, raw and infinite, waiting for its moment to ignite. Cassie's eyes flickered to Malik. His steady presence was anchoring, but his brows were furrowed, hinting at layers of worry. "We need to confirm the source of that noise, but we have to do it quietly," he murmured, and Cassie felt an immediate connection to the shared purpose that stirred beneath the surface. "Okay," she replied, steeling herself for what lay ahead. "We will scout ahead while the rest of you stay quiet." She felt the weight of their gaze. They were depending on her. Her ability to execute a plan under insane circumstances would shape their fate. But the enormity of that responsibility felt infinitely larger than any document full of protocols. This was about lives and the choices that would define her as a leader. As they moved, Cassie silently rehearsed every step. The ache of doubt threatened to reclaim her, but this time, she fought against it. She'd prepared for this scenario, yet nothing could have fully braced her for the reality of commanding safety amidst chaos. The fear was a relentless companion, tugging at her every moment, but she was determined to push through. Cassie gestured for Malik to take the lead, and they inched toward the door. Flickering shadows danced across the walls, echoing the fear that had gripped her heart. Half of her wanted to flee, But that part was fading fast, overshadowed by an unwavering instinct to press on. The smell of damp air and a hint of desperation filled her lungs like a cruel reminder of the stakes. As they neared the entrance, she heard a murmur ripple through the room behind them. The families shifted, a collective breath held in anticipation. She quieted the thunderous storms in her mind, recalling her training. Trust, accountability, confidence. Each word bolstered her spirit, reminding her of the unwavering fire she realized had always been there, waiting for her to act upon it. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the space, jolting her into action. Cassie turned to Malik, whose eyes communicated understanding before he poised for a swift response. "Ready?" he asked, his resolve like armor against the chaos. And then, a newcomer burst through the door, silhouetted against the turmoil outside, their intentions cloaked in uncertainty. Cassie's heart raced, not just from fear, but from the sensing that change had arrived, leaving a potent question hanging thick in the air. What awaited them on the other side of this threshold? The time had come for her to confront not just the external threats, but the internal ones, the limitations she had accepted within herself, that she was now resolute to dismantle. She realized then that the door was not simply an entryway. It was an opportunity to face her fears. Would she step through it, ready to embrace the unknown? Cassie stood frozen for a moment, her heart hammering in her chest as the newcomer stepped further into the dim room. As the figure emerged from the shadows, Cassie noticed the steely determination carved across their features, a reflection of the courage she was striving to embody. "Who are you?" Cassie managed, her voice steadier this time. This was her moment to rally her faltering strength. The weight of responsibility felt more tangible, more pressing than ever before. The newcomer straightened, their expression unwavering. "I'm here to help," they replied, glancing nervously at the door. "But it's not safe for long." Something in their tone sparked a flicker of instinct within Cassie. "What do you mean?" she probed, her uncertainty tangled with a newfound resolve. She was testing the waters of her leadership, balancing the need for information with the escalating tension in the room. "There are agents outside, ICE agents. They're looking for someone they think is in here," the newcomer explained, urgency threading through each word. "We can't let them in. They will cause chaos." The reality of their words hit Cassie like a wave, clarity breaking through the confusion. The stakes were no longer abstract. They now bore the names and faces of the people relying on her. Her choices would determine their safety. Cassie glanced at Malik, who met her gaze with a crowded mix of concern and determination. She knew that whatever the plans were moving forward, they needed to be executed with utmost precision. It was a test of her capability to respond strategically amidst rising panic. "Then we have to create a barrier," Cassie declared, her voice cutting through the looming fear. "We have to protect everyone inside." The families clustered behind her in the room were still, but she could feel their anxiety churning. They were banking on her ability to turn this dire moment into something manageable, something they could survive. "Can you rally the others?" Malik asked the newcomer, his tone steadying. "We need to barricade the door." As the newcomer nodded and moved to gather the others, Cassie took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of urgency quicken. This was the moment she had rehearsed in her mind. "Let's move," she ordered, clasping her hands together to ward off her rising trepidation. She felt their eyes piercing into her. She had to stand firm and act decisively. With Malik's guidance, they started to push furniture against the door, creating a makeshift barrier that would hopefully hold against any incoming force. As they worked, Cassie couldn't help but notice how the weight of their collective effort was forging an unexpected bond among the families present. This was more than just an exercise in survival. It was a lesson in unity. "Everyone, listen up," Cassie shouted. The chatter stilled as she pressed on. "We're facing a serious threat, but we're stronger together. I need each one of you to stay calm and focused. We have a plan, and we're going to execute it." Her heart raced, not just from fear, but from a swell of empowerment. For the first time, she felt her leadership not as a burden to bear, but as a mantle she could wear with pride. Just as they finished blocking the door, another loud bang reverberated from the other side. Cassie's breath caught. The uncertainty she faced tilted dangerously near despair, but that inner voice whispered back, reminding her that she was not just a participant in this crisis. She had transformed into its architect. "Stay close," she urged her group, a fierce determination brewing within her. "We're going to make it through this." The moment stretched, pregnant with tension, and heat rose in her cheeks as the reality struck her. It wasn't just about the external threat. It was about who she was willing to become in the face of adversity. She was no longer a hesitant leader. As the pounding intensified, she felt every ounce of support and commitment from those around her. The true test was beginning, one that would reveal her strengths, both as a person and a leader. But just as Cassie was prepared to rally her group for the next move, an ominous silence fell. Something was coming. The weight of it pressed down on her. What was about to unfold would challenge her newfound resolve entirely. Had she truly stepped into her potential, or was it all about to shatter? With the door trembling beneath the pressure, uncertainty loomed once more, threatening to swallow her whole. Cassie's heart raced as the door shuttered again. The silence that replaced the chaotic thuds left her hollowed out and raw. She sensed the weight of every gaze upon her, their hopes tethered to her command, yet trepidation gnawed at her resolve. Would it be enough? She took a step back, reevaluating the space and the people within it. With every minute that passed, the realization of her authority deepened. No longer was she a bystander in a story unraveling around her. She was at the center of it, adjusting her path beneath the heat of expectation. The urgent whispers around her began to blur into a singular melody of anxiety, urging her to grasp the moment and mold it. "Malik," she called, her voice slicing through the air. "Is there a window we can use?" He nodded sharply and rushed to the far side of the room. "There's a small one in the back. It might not be easy, but it's a chance," he responded, his voice low but steady, reminding her of the shared weight they carried. Cassie felt a spark of clarity light within her. "Let's do it. We can send someone out for help. If we can get eyes on the situation outside, we'll know what we're dealing with." Carefully, she began to formulate a plan, her mind flickering with both strategy and the gut-wrenching fear of the unknown. Her assertiveness became the rudder guiding her group through the roiling seas of anxiety. "I need 3 volunteers," she declared, her voice more authoritative than she expected it to be. "You'll head to the window and scout what's happening outside." Several hands shot up, a testament to the energy and drive she had ignited in them. It filled her with pride. But as the moment unfolded, a nagging doubt wormed its way into her thoughts. What if she led them into a greater danger? "Think hard about this," she said, softening her tone but still powerfully guiding. "This is risky. We need your commitment. If you sense anything out of the ordinary, get back inside immediately." Malik stepped forward, flanked by 2 others, their resolve evident even in the trembling of their hands. Cassie watched them approach the back of the room as they huddled together, and for a moment, they reminded her of a band of warriors ready to face the onslaught of an invisible enemy. As they drew near the window, she took notice of their palpable nervousness. It mirrored her own. In that moment, she recognized something vital. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. "Remember," she called out to the trio, "you are empowered. You've got the strength of this whole group behind you." With a nod, Malik and the others pushed the window open slightly, peering out into the uncertain night. As they strained to listen, Cassie felt herself growing more anxious. Each passing second ticked away not just time, but likely opportunity. She could hear the faintest murmurs through the window, murmurs that might confirm her worst fears. "What are you hearing?" she queried, her patience slipping toward a thin thread of panic. Malik turned, his eyes wide, and she saw the realization dawning on him. A mirrored dawning in her own heart. They were not metaphorical soldiers. They were allies in a battle for safety. And while Cassie was beginning to embrace her role, she now faced an unanticipated challenge. leading these people through a situation that could very well escalate. "Cassie, they're out there," Malik finally murmured. "We need to hurry. They're looking for someone, and they're not leaving anytime soon." Her mind raced with possibilities. The revelations hurtled into her consciousness like arrows. If they hadn't already found their target, the ensuing confusion could still put them all in peril. "I need everyone to stay quiet and prepared for anything," she announced, channeling a calm she didn't fully feel. "We'll act together. This is our moment. If we don't pan out this time, it could break everything we've been working toward." Just as the tension peaked, the unmistakable sound of shouting erupted outside, breaking through the fragile haze of hope. A siren wailed in the distance, sending a shock of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The world had just expanded into something darker and more chaotic. Cassie's resolve solidified. She was not just going to weather the storm, she would confront it. "Prepare yourselves," she urged, feeling the weight of each word. "No matter what, we will see this through together." With that, Cassie braced herself for what loomed ahead, and she realized that this was not merely a test of survival. It was a crucible, shaping her into the leader she was meant to become. Yet as the night closed around them, drawn thick with threat, she couldn't shake the gnawing apprehension that perhaps she had set a wheel in motion that could not be undone. At that moment, the door rattled hard and the sound of heavy footsteps thundered outside. Cassie sensed her heart pounding with a frantic urgency. The next steps were critical. Would her newfound strength be enough to guide them through the chaos? As the door quaked once more, it seemed destiny itself had converged on this singular moment. Would she rise to meet it? The very essence of her leadership was about to be tested like never before. The door erupted open, sending splintered wood flying. Instant chaos splashed across the room like a cold wave. Cassie's heart thundered against her ribcage. Her breath quickened, but instinct took charge, a newfound clarity surfacing amidst the confusion. She clutched the back of a nearby chair, anchoring herself, and caught the frantic eyes of her group. "Stay calm," Cassie shouted, her voice slicing through the clamor. "We need to move now." The urgency of her command rippled through the air, igniting a flicker of resolve in her companions. They were no longer mere spectators. They had become players in this dire game of survival. Amid the swirling panic, Cassie's mind raced. The first order was to ensure everyone remained together. "Malik, block the door, don't let them in. The rest of you follow me," she instructed, her tone firm yet reassuring. They needed direction now more than ever, and Cassie felt the gravitational pull of responsibility drawing her closer to the mantel. As they formed a line, Cassie led them through the narrow aisles of the scattered furniture, every step filled with purpose. She recalled the strategies from her previous experiences as a project manager. Inciting a sense of camaraderie and urgency was crucial. "Listen closely," she commanded, her voice steadying as they huddled against the far wall. "Our priority is to stay together and make smart choices. We won't panic." In that moment, the door rattled again, and she noted the urgency behind each shutter. The muffled voices outside were like ominous whispers, taunting them with uncertainty. Cassie felt the weight of choice swelling within her chest. Her past decisions, both failures and triumphs, knitted together in her mind, coalescing into a singular purpose. She had to own this moment. "Think, they might be looking for someone specific. What can we do?" She probed, scanning the faces of her group. Fear flickered like distant storm clouds, but she sensed something more: raw determination. If they could channel it correctly, it could serve as their shield against the chaos. "Let's move to the back," suggested Malik, his voice steady as he kept his eyes locked on Cassie. "If there's an exit, we could escape without being noticed." "Right," Cassie agreed, feeling a jolt of appreciation for Malik's natural leadership. "Let's stay low and move fast. Use the shadows." The strategy felt right. She could not afford to waver at the helm. Every decision was a step toward survival. As they crept across the room, Cassie's instincts kicked in. She closely observed the group, reading their twitches, their breaths, the silent pact conveyed through tight jaws and clenched fists. Each member subtly adjusted to her steely resolve. It reinforced her notion: She could lead them, but it would take a collective effort to survive. They reached the dim rear of the room, the sparse light cascading through the sparse gaps in the boarded-up windows. Cassie turned, her expression grave but focused. "Listen, our way out might be the exit on the other side. Malik and I will go first. Cover us while we scout." She needed them to trust her, to trust the plan. But doubt stirred. Would they follow through? Did they see the leader she aspired to be? "Oh God," one of the younger members gasped. "What if they catch us? What do we do then?" In that moment of vulnerability, Cassie recognized a pivotal gap. Doubt could easily fray their fragile unity. We have to push that thought aside. Visualize our escape instead. Each word dripped with conviction. We're not going to let fear dictate our choices. Trust in each other. Trust in your training. She felt a flicker of empowerment washing over the group. A sudden crash echoed from the door, rattling her composure momentarily. Cassie's heart lurched. Anger replaced fear, driving her forward. Standing before them now as more than a mere figurehead, she was their leader. "We will not become victims today," she declared with fervor. "Now on my mark we move." As they prepared to burst through the darkness toward uncertainty, Cassie sensed a surge of adrenaline flooding her veins. This was not just a matter of physical escape. It was about enacting the strength she had begun to cultivate. But as she opened the door to the unknown, the temperature dropped and she felt a suffocating chill wrap around her. Seconds felt like hours. What lay beyond could either lead to freedom or to doom. In that breathless moment, Cassie steeled herself, realizing she was about to confront not just what waited outside, but her own capacity for leadership. "Go!" The word burst forth, a rally of defiance and hope. Just as they crossed the threshold into the shadows of night, a shout rang out behind them, chilling her to the bone. The chase had begun, and Cassie knew that her journey as a leader had only just started. Would she be enough to guide them through this darkened reality? Cassie's breath came in short gasps as she fled into the night, her heart pounding fiercely with each step. Behind her, the chaotic echoes of shouts and hurried footsteps trailed like shadows. This was not just escape. It was liberation. In that instant, every ounce of doubt she had grappled with previously seemed to dissipate into the cool air filled with adrenaline. "Over here!" she called to her group, leading them down a narrow alleyway. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, transforming her fear into fierce determination. This was a moment of empowerment, a culmination of every soft whisper of doubt turned into a deafening chorus of resolve. Malik fell into step beside her, his presence a steadfast anchor amid the turmoil. "We need to find shelter and get the families to safety," he urged, urgency threading through his voice. They shouldn't be out in the open. Cassie's mind raced, her knowledge of the neighborhood merging with instinct. Under the dim light of a flickering street lamp, she caught sight of a small community clinic, one where she had once worked late shifts. "There! The clinic!" she directed, pointing toward the sanctuary they could find beyond those doors. With the group in tow, fleeing down the familiar path ignited a sense of purpose within her. No longer was she moving in fear. Instead, she was leading a collective toward safety. Each stride she took not only brought them closer to protection, but reinforced a truth. She could protect those she loved and those who were counting on her. Once they reached the clinic's entrance, Cassie flung the doors open, ushering everyone inside. The sense of relief after the chaotic escape enveloped them. A sense of urgency gave way to a moment to breathe. "Lock the doors," she instructed, her leadership blossoming from necessity into strength. They gathered in the waiting area, the only sounds the labored breaths of the weary families. Cassie felt the weight of their fears, yet there she stood, a beacon guiding them through dark waters. Malik's presence at her side was reaffirming, a silent partnership as he took charge of settling the frightened families. "We're safe here for now," Cassie announced, her voice shaking slightly but vibrant with determination. "But we need to stay alert and connected. Utilize this moment to share any details about what you've seen, who might be looking for you." As the families began to share their stories, Cassie listened intently, her role morphing into not just a leader, but a listener and advocate. Their fears echoed the stories of countless others she had known. Stories of resilience, heartache, and hope. She felt an intense connection stir within her, a transformative power emerging from shared vulnerability. In that moment, realization struck. She was no longer defined solely by her past struggles, but had risen to embody leadership in its truest sense. It was a rich tapestry, woven with threads of compassion, strength, and the willingness to confront the adversities not just for herself, but for everyone around her. Cassie's thoughts drifted back to her initial conflict, how her fears had nearly suffocated her resolve. Yet here she was, standing with conviction, knowing she had fought against those demons and emerged not just as a survivor, but a leader. The role she hesitated to take on had become her shield, granting her the strength to confront any challenge. When the dim light of dawn began to break through the clinic's windows, casting golden rays upon the gathered families, the tension slowly began to dissolve. Cassie's spirit soared with the clarity of purpose. She had survived a storm and galvanized a community. "A new chapter begins here today," she declared, her voice steady and confident. "Together, we will not just endure, we will thrive. We will learn, we will advocate, and we will protect each other. We will advocate for our rights and transform fear into action." Cassie smiled, something she hadn't done freely in weeks. With every reassurance she gave, she knew she was achieving not only safety, but also empowerment. The families nodded, responses brewing in the warmth of collective hope. Anchor in their storm, Cassie understood she was not alone anymore. She had proven to herself and her daughters that courage could manifest in action, transforming fear into an unyielding force for good. She had become an emblem of resilience, drawing from the trials that had once threatened to engulf her. In that moment, among the stories shared, the fear faced, and the connections made, Cassie Johnson had discovered her true self. A leader, not just through circumstance, but through unwavering resolve, awareness, and the ability to turn vulnerability into an indomitable strength. Now, armed with her experiences and the narratives of those she uplifted, she envisioned every possibility that lay ahead. The therapy rooms once filled with patients would now brim with voices echoing the collective courage, igniting a movement bound by compassion. This was not merely an end. It was a profound beginning. So as the sun rose beyond the horizon, illuminating the path of a new day, Cassie eagerly anticipated the unfolding journey ahead. One where she would further harness her strength and interact with her community, proving that their stories mattered, paving a future of activism for herself and others. Now is the time to stand up for change. You need to subscribe now to witness more personal overcoming stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help these stories reach more souls. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Comment below with your reactions and theories, and let's keep the momentum going.